Hi there, I'm Joshua Molina. You might recognize me from TV shows like Scandal or The West Wing. I'm coming to you today via pre-recorded video to introduce you to a wonderful nonprofit organization, and that is the Flame Society. I was very honored when the Flame Society asked me to narrate their Vanguard television series, Reliving the Holocaust Through Their Eyes. It's a program that takes a unique approach to presenting the horrors and the heroes of the Holocaust to a 21st century audience. As you probably know, in addition to the 6 million Jews who lost their lives in just a few short years, 5 million non-Jews also suffered and died at the hands of the Nazis. Out of respect to those millions, we must never forget, and we won't as long as organizations like the Flame Society are diligently working to keep that flame burning for generations to come. So please enjoy our first episode, and please do support the Flame Society. Thanks so much. It was more than 70 years ago. Hitler invaded Poland and World War II began. Newsreels in this country showed the bombings and invasions, but the one side of the war that we didn't see until it was all over was the Holocaust, the attempted annihilation of the Jews. 29 million died during World War II. 11 million were civilians who were exterminated by the Nazis because they didn't fit the Aryan plan. 6 million were Jews who were killed simply because they were Jewish. Some were lucky enough to escape the attempted genocide of their people. In this program, we will hear what really happened, from the ones who survived, the ones who saved them, and the ones who came after them. These are their recollections, told in their own words, in Reliving the Holocaust Through Their Eyes.
Welcome to Reliving the Holocaust Through Their Eyes. I'm Jerry Helfman. This program will take you back to the horrific days of the Holocaust and show you what life was like from the perspective of the ones who lived through it. This is not your typical Holocaust documentary program. We'll be showing you aspects of the Holocaust that are not usually discussed, from the hidden Jews to the protectors, the righteous Gentiles who hid them, the soldiers who liberated the camps, and more. You'll see artifacts that have never been seen before. Holocaust experts will discuss the impact of eyewitness testimony. And we'll present features on current-day organizations, institutions, museums, and issues about the Holocaust. Our first story is about the Dachau album. In early 1933, Heinrich Himmler ordered the creation of Dachau, the first concentration camp. Dachau was originally intended to be a re-education camp for political detainees, but soon became the model for all concentration camps. Himmler was in charge of the SS and the concentration camps, and the SS ran the camps. In 1945, when the Dachau concentration camp was liberated, there was a 15-year-old survivor named Arnold Unger. After liberation, he remained in Dachau for 2 years. During this time, Arnold worked as an office boy for the troops who were caring for him. The soldiers created an album which contained hundreds of photographs and 30 watercolor paintings which depict life in Dachau. Arnold's daughter, Sherry Unger Klages, found the album in her father's closet after his death and has now brought this never-before-seen piece of history to the world here on Reliving the Holocaust Through Their Eyes. We'll hear from Avi Hoffman, a documentary filmmaker who has done extensive research on the Dachau album, as well as Samuel Heider, a survivor of Dachau. Avi Hoffman tells us about the album.
In the album are 30 pieces of never-before-seen artwork created by an extraordinary Catholic Polish artist by the name of Michael Porolski. 30 pieces of artwork, hand-drawn, extremely detailed illustrations depicting life and death in the concentration camp of Dachau. A sequential narrative of the arrival of the prisoners and their eventual murder. In addition to the artwork, there were 285 photographs many of which have been seen before: Red Cross photographs, the Nazi photographs, the propaganda photographs that were distributed by the Nazis. But a vast majority of these photographs have never been seen. These were photographs that were taken by either Sherry's father Arnold or by individual officers, American officers in the camp, or by unknown photographers whose pictures were then somehow added into this album. There are also many personal photographs that were definitively made for Sherry's father, depicting his relationship with this young woman who we have since identified as a young lady named Sala Zilberstein, who now lives in New Jersey. They had a relationship. She was the sister of the gentleman who ran a home in Dachau. So all of these elements have come together in one album. A Catholic artist, a young Jewish survivor, who together in this album are now being presented to the world.
Samuel Haider is a survivor of Dachau and other concentration camps. Sam tells us some of his experiences in Dachau.
My name is Sam Haider. I was born in Poland in a small village by the name of Biekov. I experienced anti-Semitism, I think, at the age maybe of 6 or 7. I didn't know it exactly. They called me a Żyd, Jew, in school. So when I came home and I told my parents, why do they call me Żyd? Why do they call me Jew? He said, don't make nothing out of it. You are Yid, you are Jew, so they call you Jew. And I experienced anti-Semitism until till the war broke out, 1939, and then when Hitler came in, it was a different story. I was only a short time in Dachau. I was only from March till April 23rd in Dachau. When we came to Dachau, we didn't work no more. We were just waiting to be put in the crematoriums. But in Dachau, I experienced the most unhumanly conditions. In Dachau, in order to go get a little bit watery soup, we had to climb over dead bodies. When I came the first time to get some soup, so the man who gave me the soup, it was a Hungarian people, they distributed the soup. So he gave me a little bit soup, and I asked for a piece of potato, which there was no potatoes. So he hit me over the head, and I had to drop the soup. When I tried to pick up whatever was left on the ground, he smashed it with his shoes. So from then on, I didn't care if I go for the soup or I don't go for the soup. And I didn't care if I die or I live. Life was meaningless. I was waiting just to be put in the crematoriums. In Dachau, I tried to remember the exact date. I think it was April 23rd. April 23rd, we were told to get out from the barracks and go to the railroad station. So we assembled at the railroad station. We were given a little bit coffee, a little bit ersatz coffee with a piece of bread. We were put on trains, 60 people to a car. No food, no sanitary conditions. Standing room only, 60 people jammed in one car. We were so lucky, like we always live with miracles, and this was a miracle of miracles. And we were at the railroad station. Out of nowhere, American pilots came and they started shooting with machine guns and killing a lot of SS, and also killing the commandant the one who was supposed to take the transport. He was assigned to take all of us to the mountains, I think the Tyrol Mountains, or I don't know, and dynamite the train with no survivors. And like I said, we always live with miracles, and this was a miracle of miracles because the commandant got killed. And we couldn't move because they machine gunned and they bombed the locomotive, and we couldn't move. So after waiting for several hours, I think it was already like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, another commandant took over the transport. So we were lucky that he took over, because instead of going to the mountains, he diverted the train in a different direction. And we were just going back and forth, back and forth. Instead of going from the front, this commandant took us closer to the American front. And after 7 days, I think we were on the train. And what can I tell you? The smell from the human waste was just unbearable. Many, many of us died on the train. And we finally came to a place called Stalta. This was April 28th or 29th, we came to a place called Stalta. And the train stopped in Stalta. Came around 8 o'clock or so, or 9 o'clock. We were ordered out of the train, out of the cars, of the railroad cars. We were told not to move. We didn't know what's going on here, so naturally we had to follow orders. So we went out from the railroad cars. We were standing there and waiting and waiting. And as we were standing, we heard a tremendous rumbling, a rumbling. So one of us said in Polish, he was in the Polish army, he said, "To są tanki," those are tanks. So we didn't know tanks, we didn't say nothing about maybe German tanks or what. And after a while we saw a lot of tanks on the nearby highway. A few tanks turned in our direction. And the closer they came, one of us started yelling, "Americane!" We started yelling, "Americane, Americane, Americans, Americans." And at the same time, a soldier, perhaps maybe 10 other soldiers, came from behind one of the tanks. And as he approached us with a little machine gun. And he said in a broken German, he said, "Du hab keine Angst, du bist frei, don't be afraid, you are free." Those words will remain with me for the rest of my life.
We asked Avi Hoffman to tell us about some of the paintings and pictures in the Dachau album. What you are about to see has never been shown publicly before.
In this image, which is the first piece of artwork in the album, the first of 30, what we see are the prisoners being herded into Dachau. What is most fascinating about this piece, and what we've found out since, is that as you look at this image, what we see is, number one, the color. there are colors in this image, whereas in the following images, most of the color is taken out. The other fascinating thing that we've learned about this image is that as you look at the different characters in this image, and specifically the hats and the clothing that they are wearing, what we have found out is that each one of these hats represents a different strata of the society. You have your peasant hats, you have your high society hats, the clothing that they wear, the types of coats, and what the artist, we believe, was trying to depict is that these prisoners came from every different strata of the society. What stands out most about this particular image is not only the fact that the dog is attacking the prisoner, which obviously was common, but this is the only piece of artwork that has dates: 1940, 41, 42, 43. Now, the controversy is whether these dates were the dates when he actually created the images, or whether these were the dates that he remembers these events to have happened. And this is something we may never know for sure. What we see in this image, once again, is color, because this prostitute is brought by the Nazi into the camp, and she comes from outside of the camp, therefore she has color. Also, what we see is that the prisoners are forced to stand at attention and remove their hats in deference to a prostitute. What we see in this image is a prisoner that tried to escape. And we know this because when the escapees are caught, they are brought back into the camp, and a sign was put on them that said, "Hurrah, ich bin wieder da," which means, "Hooray, I am here again." And this was the beginning of the process of them being paraded in front of the other prisoners and eventually either shot or usually hung in the presence of all the prisoners in the main plaza of the camp. This is the next to the last piece of artwork, and what stands out about this is the footstep of the prisoner onto the grass. And what we found out is that this was a definitive statement by the artist about the choice of the prisoner to be killed by suicide, basically, because stepping on the grass was not allowed. So this conscious choice by the prisoner to put his foot on the grass was a choice knowing that he would be shot immediately. This, of course, is the final image in the artwork, the 30th piece of artwork in the sequence, and this is the death of the prisoner who has just stepped on the grass and chosen to be shot by the Nazi. And here he is in front of the sign that says, "Halt." Of course, what we also discovered is there were no such signs in Dachau. This was the artist's way of letting us know that they were not to leave the camp, and the only way out was death. What we see in this image, and again, there were many images taken by the Americans who liberated the camp. And so there may be images out in the world that look similar to this, but this is unique to this album. What we're seeing are the Nazi prisoners of war that were brought into the camp and kept in the camp. The overcrowding in the barracks after the war, post-liberation, was so extraordinary that they had to bring bunks and sleep on the rooftops as well as outside of the barracks. And so this image, we see very clearly some of these bunks that were kept on top of the roof. This is a very special photograph for us and for this album, because this is to the best of our knowledge, the Polish Prisoners Association in post-war Dachau. And in this image, we see Arnold Unger, Sherry's father, who brought this album to the States. We also see other individuals that we've been able to identify. Mr. Chislik, who became the leader of the Polish Prisoners Association. And we believe that perhaps in this photograph is the artist Michael Perolsky as well. This is a unique photograph in the album showing Sherry's father, Arnold Unger, on the left, holding the telephone with what we believe are the American, or some of the American officers that were running the camp. We have not identified who the Americans are, the other people in the album, but this once again proves that Arnold Unger was an office boy, as we learned from Marcus Smith's book, The Harrowing of Hell. This photograph is Arnold Unger and a young lady who we've identified as Sala Zilberstein. They had a beautiful relationship post-war. She was the sister of the man who ran the home that Arnold was living in at the time in the town of Dachau. They came to America together and then separated. This photograph depicts the young couple, Arnold Unger and Sala Zilberstein. Another copy of this exact photograph was cut in two after this young couple came to America together, and then they separated and cut the photograph in half. We were able to identify Sala. We went to New Jersey, where she lives today, and she brought out her half of the photograph, which we were then able to put together with Arnold Unger's half of the photograph and bring the two halves together.
We showed some of the paintings from the Dachau album to Sam Hyder, the survivor of Dachau we heard from before.
I looked at this picture. It's a reminder of myself. And I came to a concentration camp for the first time. And I was called into a room. And they put me on a table like this with my legs. I couldn't move. They gave me 25 whips. We were accused of stealing a piece of bread. This picture is a familiar picture, not only in Dachau, but in every camp. We had bunks. In some places there were 1, 2, or 3 bunks. I happened to be on the lower bunk, but this is a picture what almost every inmate, every Häftling had to go through, had to sleep in those bunks.
The Dachau album is soon to be the subject of a major documentary. For more information about the Dachau album, please visit our website at www.theflamesociety.org.